Thanks for being here. Subscribe to Cheating Stories Best, so you don't miss new stories.
The wife confessed to her husband, but to what? Today's story with a similar plot. Enjoy it! They say that the husband is always the last to know, and in my case, that may or may not have been true. The only thing that was true was that I actually found out. I did not learn about this by chance, nor from any of my friends or my wife's enemies. No, I learned this firsthand, so to speak. It was at breakfast after a stormy night, and I was finishing my second cup of coffee when my wife, Iris, said, "Yesterday my boss invited me to lunch." We ended up in a hotel room and spent most of the day there. I loved it, and we will probably do it again. This made me silent for a few seconds, and then I asked, "Why were you close to me last night? Do you like it when you give me a few sloppy seconds?" I didn't give you a single second that I wasn't careful. I cleaned myself up pretty well when we finished, and yet you came to me just a few hours after you were with him. To me, that means seconds, careless or not. I guess I just felt a little guilty. Oh damn, I don't know what I was thinking. I just felt the need to make love to you. I guess I wanted to see if anything had changed, but nothing had changed. I still enjoy making love to you. Making love? You just told me you cheated with your boss and you're going to do it again. Where's the love in this? It was a figure of speech, Frank. Anyway, I'm saying this to give you time to decide what you want to do in case you don't want me around you anymore. Why would I want you around if you can tell me so easily? I need to think about what I want to do, and you need to move into one of the other bedrooms. That's not necessary, Frank. I just told you that I enjoy making love to you. Maybe so, but I have no idea what other women your boss is sleeping with, and I want to make damn sure you don't give me anything that he could give you. I just hope it's not too late. You could have given me a gift from him last night. Her face went pale when I mentioned other women, clearly implying that she was one of them. Then she said, "He wouldn't do anything that would make him sick. He has to be careful because of his wife." I shook my head in disgust and stood up from the table, getting ready to go to work. When I got out of the shower, Iris was sitting on the bed. When I told you that, I was hoping you would say that we need to talk about this. What is there to talk about? You cheated on me and then casually threw it in my face. If you can be as calm about it, I have to ask myself if this was the first time for you or just another in a long line. How do I know that you were really working all those evenings when you called me and told me you were staying late? You said you spent most of the day in the hotel room with Ted, so how do I know you don't spend the afternoon in the hotel room a couple of times a week? How do I know Ted is the one, Iris? There's nothing to talk about. Well, that's not entirely true. We need to decide how to tell Dave and Marcy, and of course, there's your family and mine. We'll have to let them all know, and we'll most likely have to explain to them why, as I don't want everyone to think it's my fault. Everyone should know that I'm not the one who ruined our marriage. It doesn't have to be like that, Frank. I love you, and other than yesterday with Ted, I have never cheated on you. Yesterday it just happened. It was spontaneous. I did it just like that. I wanted to become something other than just the mother and housewife I had been for the last 24 years. I just wanted to do something wild and vicious at least once in my life. I did it, and I liked it. It had nothing to do with any feelings for Ted. He just happened to be in the right place at the right time. Maybe not, Iris, but it sure as hell made my feelings for you less. And don't forget the part where you said you'd probably do it again. I have no idea what I'm going to do until I talk to a lawyer, but you can consider our marriage over. No matter how much we talk, I will never be able to trust you again. After tying a Windsor knot in my tie, I left the room and went to work. I wasn't thinking about work, and that day the company didn't receive the money it was owed from me. I scoured the yellow pages for a lawyer near my office, found one, and called him. He was able to meet with me the next day after lunch, and I made an appointment. As I made a note in my diary, I noticed the date. It was a week before our 24th anniversary. Well, I thought, this year I won't have to spend money on a card and a gift. After work, I headed home because, frankly, I had nowhere else to go. Going to a bar to drown my sorrows in alcohol didn't appeal to me, and I wasn't looking for a friend to cry on. Iris usually got home before me and had dinner ready when I arrived, and that evening was no different. She had already set the table and even opened a bottle of wine. I didn't know what she was hoping for, but whatever it was, she wasn't likely to get it. Given how I was feeling, I guess I should have just gone into the office and ignored Iris and the dinner she had prepared, but I needed to eat, and it was ready. I poured myself a glass of wine and sat down at the table. Dinner was meatloaf, gravy, mashed potatoes, and salad. I ate in silence. I could see that Iris was trying to work up the courage to say something, and I hoped that she would not speak before I had finished eating. I would rather get up and leave the room on a full stomach when she started talking. This was not destined to happen. I was just putting my fork full of salad into my mouth when Iris said, "What if I told you that this will never happen again? Will this change anything?" I wasn't the type to talk with my mouth full, so I didn't say anything, continuing to chew the salad. She fidgeted and then said, "It was a mistake, Frank, a huge mistake that I deeply regret. In 24 years of marriage, Frank, one bad thing has happened. Can't you bring yourself to forgive me for one bad thing in our entire marriage? Is it really possible that what we shared for 24 years should be lost, thrown into the trash just because I made one stupid mistake?" By then, I had already finished chewing the salad and swallowed it, so I said, "It wasn't just one mistake, Iris. The first was when you let another man be with you, and I don't even know if Ted was the first, or if yesterday was the first time you were with him. The second mistake was that you told me about it. If you had kept your mouth shut, we wouldn't be sitting here under such tense circumstances. Your third mistake, and it was a big one, was telling me that you liked it and that you might do it more often. So the answer to your question is yes, what we have experienced in the last 24 years should be destroyed because of what you did. You have completely lost my trust, Iris, and a marriage cannot exist without trust, at least not the marriage I'm in." She got up from the table, crying, and left the room. I took a sip of wine and finished my dinner. After finishing, I cleaned up the kitchen and then went to my room to play on the computer for a while. When I went upstairs to go to bed, I saw that Iris had moved her things into Marcy's old room. She probably chose Marcy's room because Marcy had no intention of using it anytime soon. Marcy got married, moved to California, and lived in her own room only when she came to stay. Dave still lived in his room when he came home on vacation, so he could come back at any time. In the morning, I did not see Iris and stopped for breakfast at the Village Inn. When I got to work, I waited until 9 o'clock when the workday at Wallish and Teen began, and then I called them. When the secretary answered, I asked to speak to Ted Harbaugh, and when he answered the phone and said hello, I said, "This is Rob Myers, Ted. Iris told me about your afternoon romp at the hotel, and I decided to call and let you know that I'm kicking her out, and she's all yours. Besides, since we're talking about this, you should know that I'm pissed and will be looking for you. Make sure you have your health insurance covered because you will need it." I hung up without giving him a chance to say a word. I would have gone looking for him right away, but I was in no hurry. Let him spend his time looking over his shoulder and wondering if I'm hiding in the shadows, just waiting to pounce on him. At 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I received bad news. In our state, there was no one to blame for anything, so everything was divided equally. Iris and I made about the same amount of money, so there probably wouldn't be any alimony. The children were grown and lived independently, so child support payments were not included in the bill. We may have had some problems with our pension funds since we each had one at work, but the lawyer decided they offset each other. All in all, this would be a pretty straightforward divorce, if divorces could ever be considered straightforward. The lawyer then brought up the fact that we could probably sue Harbaugh in an alienation of affection claim, and we might even sue Wallish and Teen if they had a company policy and procedure manual prohibiting intimate harassment between employees. I rejected it. It seemed wrong to me to hold Wallish and Teen responsible for what Ted and Iris did. Besides, if we did that, they would probably both lose their jobs, and we wouldn't be able to get anything out of Harbaugh, and I would have to pay alimony to Iris. I told the lawyer to get the divorce papers ready and to file a lawsuit against Harbaugh. It was already past 5 when I left the lawyer's office, and I decided there was no point in going back to work. On the way home, I thought about the division of property. We had quite a bit of equity in the house, and it was actually still 3 years away from being fully paid off. Did I want to buy out Iris's share and keep the house? I thought not. What would a single man do with a large 4-bedroom house? Not only that, but every item in the house would be a constant reminder of what life was like before Iris cheated on me. So, I had two options. Iris could buy out my share, or we could put the house up for sale. When I got home, Iris had already prepared dinner, and I sat down to eat. I could see that she wanted to say something but couldn't bring herself to say it out loud. I finished eating and was getting up from the table when Iris said, "Ted told me that you called him today and threatened him." Not true. I didn't threaten him, I made him a promise. You'll only get yourself in trouble, Rob. You could end up in jail. Why should you care? I wouldn't interfere, and you could spend more time at the hotel with your favorite guy, provided, of course, that I leave him something to play with. Please don't do this, Rob. Please, for me. I laughed and said, "For you? I'll tell you what I did for you today." I met with a lawyer and asked him to start filing the divorce papers. You can tell your lover that he won't be able to hide behind your skirts. I wasn't thinking about him. I don't want you to go to jail because of my stupidity. I wouldn't mind. I could sit in prison and smile, thinking about how you feel knowing that you are responsible for me being there. Imagine how excited I would be to tell Dave and Marcy that you put their father in jail. Don't even dare say that, Rob. Why not? I already told you that I'm going to make sure everyone knows that it wasn't because of me that this marriage was thrown into the trash. Get ready for this, Iris. You will have a lot of people asking you why you gave up on your marriage. Another thing you should think about is what you want to do with the house. I don't want it, so if you do, you'll have to buy out my share, otherwise, it will have to be put up for sale. Sell the house? Oh God, Rob, no, we can't do this. Then you need to figure out how to buy out my share. I left her sitting in the kitchen and went into the living room to play on the computer. The next morning, I got up and left before Iris woke up. At work, I told Barney, my boss, about what was going on in my life and that I might have to take time off from time to meet with lawyers, appear in court, and the like. He wished me luck and told me to take as much time as needed. Iris wasn't home when I arrived, so I warmed up some leftovers and then watched some TV. The phone rang, and I picked it up. It was my daughter, Marcy. Mom called me and said that you were leaving her. Did she tell you why? She just said it was all her fault. What's happened? Let's just leave everything as it is. It was her fault. I intended to call you and Dave and tell you what happened because I didn't want people to think it was all my fault, but if she's already admitted it was her fault, that's enough. Is there any chance you two can work this out? No chance at all. Why, Dad? You two were so deeply in love with each other. The key word, baby, is were. How are you doing? Fine. I would come home to see if I could help, but I'm busy with an important project at work and can't get away. It's okay, honey. There's nothing you can do anyway. You don't need to call Dave. Mom called him too, and then he called me to find out what I knew about what was happening. Take care of yourself, Daddy. I love you. I love you too, honey. I'll talk to you again. 3 minutes later, Dave called, and our conversation went much the same way as my conversation with Marcy. I had just hung up when Iris came in. Late evening with Harbaugh? I asked sarcastically. No, Rob. For your information, after finishing work, I spent time visiting your parents and mine. I told them about the impending divorce and said that it was all my fault. I didn't go into details, I just told them it wasn't because you did anything. Now, if you don't mind, I'll go to my room and pass out. I saw tears running down her cheeks as she left the room and headed towards the stairs. A week ago, this sight would have made me rush to her to hug her and try to console her. The next morning at work, Barney called me into his office. Are you worried about the divorce? Is there any chance that this won't happen? How are you both dealing with it and everything? There is not the slightest chance that this will not happen. Why do you ask? Have the children grown up and gone? Nothing connects you here except that your parents and sister live here? I was just told that O'Brien is retiring. I need someone to replace him in the Santa Monica office. How would you feel about living in California? This job is yours if you don't mind moving. Are you kidding? There are guys here more experienced than me who would kill for this job. Perhaps, but just because they are more experienced than you does not mean they can handle the job. I took a close look at everyone, and you are my choice. I agree. When should I be there? O'Brien gave a month's notice of dismissal starting yesterday. I'd like you to be there during his last week so he can bring you up to speed. I will begin to take action immediately. The first thing I did when I got back to my office was call my lawyer and ask how the move would affect the divorce. It depends on whether she resists or not. If she resists, you may have to fly back and forth frequently for meetings, hearings, and the like. There shouldn't be any problems if she doesn't resist. How can she fight this? I thought that was the whole point of no-fault divorces, to get rid of all that crap. This is usually true, but only if both parties agree to the divorce. If she doesn't want a divorce, she can say that the marriage can be saved with the help of a counselor, and the court can make that decision. It cannot stop the divorce, but it can delay it and make it more expensive. And sometimes, this is enough for the party serving in court to abandon the case. Well, I'm not going to stop it. What are you going to serve both her and Harbaugh? The documents are ready. All I need is your consent. Do it this afternoon if possible. Consider it done. He called me at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and said that the documents were delivered at 2:35. When I returned home from work, Iris was sitting in the living room, and it was clear to me that she had been crying. She looked up at me as I entered the room and said, "You did it. You really did it. I can't believe you threw away 24 wonderful years because of one mistake. You still don't understand, do you? It wasn't that you slept with Harbaugh, it's the way you threw it in my face. Looked me straight in the eyes and told me you loved it and were probably going to do it again. Understand, Iris, I didn't throw away 24 good years, you did. You need to decide what you want to do as far as the house is concerned because in 2 weeks, I won't be here." I left the room, went to the kitchen, and took out the leftover food from the refrigerator. After eating, I went to my office and called Marcy in California. After exchanging greetings, I said, "I don't know if this is good news or not, but I'm going to move to California. This will be in about 2 weeks. You and Mom? Just me. Today, I filed divorce papers with her. I need you to do me a favor. Anything, Dad. You know that. Look at apartments and condos within a reasonable distance from Santa Monica and find me a hotel or motel in the same area where I can stay when I first get there. Not in your life, Dad. You will stay with me. There's no way I'm letting you stay in a motel. Won't this cause any inconvenience for you and Alan? Not at all. Don't worry about Alan. Okay, if you're sure. I'm completely sure. I'm looking forward to seeing you. I am too, baby. I'll call you as soon as everything clears up." The next morning, when I came downstairs, Iris was already up and sitting at the kitchen table. "Good morning," she said. I said nothing, pouring myself a cup of coffee. I decided that I didn't need this house if I didn't have you to share it with me. I'll call the realtor this morning and sort everything out. It doesn't have to be this way, Frank. Sorry, Iris, but it is true. I poured coffee into a travel mug and headed to work. I called the real estate agent from work and agreed to meet him at the house at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and by 3 o'clock, the process was already in full swing. On the way home, I stopped at a U-Haul store and bought a few boxes to start packing my things. When I got home, Iris wasn't there, but there was a note on the kitchen table saying she would be staying with her sister for the next couple of days. I spent the evening packing and moving boxes into the garage before going to bed. All that remained was to pack the things from the office and the clothes that I would need in the next 2 weeks. The next day, my lawyer called me and said, "I heard from Harbaugh. He says we are very stupid because we have no evidence. All we have is what your wife told you, and he said he would deny it. I hate to admit it, but he's right. Don't stop the lawsuit. I'll see if we can find anything that might be useful." How can you do this? I don't know. Let me think about this. I spent the next 2 days doing what I needed to do to prepare for the move. Iris was still visiting her sister, so when I got home from work, I called her sister and asked to talk to Iris. When she answered the phone, I told her, "We need to talk," and asked her to come home so we could sit at the kitchen table and do it. "I'll come in, but I won't stay." She arrived at 7 o'clock, and I made coffee. We sat down at the table, and I told her about my move to the coast. I gave her the real estate agent's card and told her that she would have to handle the sale, and I would come back for the closing when the house sold. I told her that I would stay with Marcy until I found a place to live, and that she could contact me there. Then I asked her the $64,000 question. Why, Iris? Why did you cheat on me and with Ted Harbaugh? I told you, Rob, it just happened. It was spontaneous. I don't understand, Iris. How could this happen so suddenly? I don't want to talk about it, Rob. It was a stupid thing to do, and it cost me you. You may not want to talk about this, Iris, but I really need to know. Was I such a bad husband that you could do this to me? Was my behavior in bed so bad that you had to turn to someone else? Nothing like that, Rob. I can't explain how I felt when this happened. Ted was supposed to just invite me to lunch when he entered behind me, which was a complete surprise since he had never shown any night interest in me before. He asked me if I had ever cheated on you, and I said no. I asked him why he asked this question. He told me that he had always had a thing for me, and since we were having dinner in the hotel restaurant and had rooms upstairs, he decided to give it a try. If I had cheated on you before, I might have done it again. I think I surprised him when I asked him to pay the bill and get us a room. I know it doesn't make sense to you, but like I said, I wanted to be something other than just a wife and mother at least once in my life. I just wanted to do something exciting and wicked, and Ted reaching out to me gave me a chance. But why exactly with Harbaugh? It just so happened that I was in the right place at the right time, and it was he who proposed. Why did you tell me you liked it and you're going to do it again? Was Harbaugh such a good lover? No, it was no better with Ted. I said I'd probably do it again because I wanted more excitement. Telling you about Ted and me was another stupid thing on my part. By the way, I'm confused. On the one hand, it was the betrayal that made me so angry, but it was the feeling of guilt for the betrayal that made me confess. When I confessed, I thought that we would have a conversation like we are having now, and I could convince you that my night outside of marriage would not harm us. It would only be intimate with Ted, and you and I would still have the love we shared for 24 years. I was sure that you would understand how much I love you, and that you would allow me to get rid of this vicious and unbridled feeling, and that would let you know Ted wasn't that good in bed. It was because of the deception that everything was so good, and after a couple of times, I would have dealt with it. Now I know that I should have kept my mouth shut and let the relationship with Ted resolve itself to a natural death. If I had kept my mouth shut, you would still be with me because you would never know. Does this conversation mean you might change your mind? No way, Iris. I already told you why. This whole conversation helped me calm down. Now I know that nothing I did or didn't do caused you to do this, and knowing that will help me sleep better. Iris left, and I stood up and turned off the tape recorder I had hidden on the kitchen table. The next day, after making a couple of copies of the recording, I stopped by the lawyer's office and gave him a copy. I intended to give a copy to my wife Harbaugh, but I would hold off on handing it over until after the lawsuit by Harbaugh. The next week was a busy one as I brought my replacement up to speed and got everything ready for the move. The house was put up for sale, and we had already invited 2 couples to come see it. Hopefully, this was a good sign as the sale progressed. On my last Friday, the office staff threw me a going-away party at the lounge just down the street from the office. The next afternoon, I was in a U-Haul truck heading to California. An hour later, I called Marcy and found out how to get to her house. She must have been watching me from the window because she jumped out the door and ran up to me as I pulled up and parked. She gave me a big hug and then helped me unhook the car from the trailer I was towing. We then drove to the warehouse where I moved the items from the truck into the rented space. From there, we went to the local U-Haul dealer to drop off the truck and trailer and then headed back to Marcy's. On your first night here, we'll go out to dinner, Marcy said, and then I'll show you around. What time will Alan arrive? Alan's not coming. I kicked his 5th place when I caught him having a night with the woman who lived next door. There's no chance that you two will make things right. About the same chance as if you and your mom put everything together. I looked at her strangely, and she said, "Nobody told me, Dad. I know my dad and what kind of person he is. There's only one reason that could make him leave, and my mother actually called me and said that it was her fault that you broke up. In addition, the neighbor had a husband, and when he dealt with Alan, there was little left of him. Why didn't you let us know? I was embarrassed or maybe ashamed. You had more than 20 years, but I didn't have even 3. We went out and enjoyed dinner, and then Marcy took me to explore the area. We ended up at a place called the Blue Grotto. It was a pretty nice place and had a really good live band. Marcy seemed to be well known around the place, and before we could even sit down, several guys and girls came over to say hello. I was introduced to a few ladies, and Marcy decided to let a few girls know that I was available. Why did you do that? I asked. If you're going to hang out with me, Dad, you can't be a wallflower. Especially spend a lot of time on the dance floor with some of the guys here, and it wouldn't be right to leave you sitting at the table alone. Don't worry, you won't have to wonder what to do. The girls here are very persistent and will come to you. I don't know, honey. It's really not my taste. It may not be true, but this place is just what you need right now. It will give you some life back. As if on cue, a rather pretty blonde approached the table and said, "Can I ask your dad to dance?" Marcy laughed and said to me, "See what I mean?" For the rest of the evening, I danced with 5 different women, and 2 of them gave me their phone numbers and asked me to call them. I have to admit that after what Iris did to me, it was a huge boost to my ego. I know, she told me, I had no flaws, but deep down, I had doubts. In the end, she left for another man. On the way home to Marcy, I asked her if she had found any suitable apartments for me, and she replied that she had found a few, but I wouldn't need them because I would be staying with her. I don't think this will work, honey. Why not? I saw you dancing with some of these guys tonight, and I wouldn't want to interfere with your love life. Don't be stupid, Daddy. These guys have their places. Yes, honey, but what if I decide I want to spread some of my pollen? We are adults, and you have your own room. We can handle it. The next week was very busy as I settled into my new job and met the people who would be working for me. Barney must have told Pat O'Brien something, and Pat spread the word. There were 3 single women in the office, and I noticed that 2 of them showed interest. But although they were both foxes, they were not available to me. There was no way I was going to have an affair in the workplace. I went back to the grotto with Marcy on Friday night, and I have to admit I had a great time. Anna, one of the girls who gave me her number, joined us at the table and asked why I didn't call her. I told her I was still moving and getting used to my new job in the area. I almost let Marcy talk me into coming here tonight. Well, you are here, and we'll pretend that you called me and we agreed to meet here, Marcy laughed and said, "You're on your own, Dad." If I were you, I'd just give up and get over it. I followed her advice and spent a very pleasant evening with Anna. When the last bell rang, Marcy handed me the keys to her car and said, "Do not wait for me. Tomorrow is Saturday, and I don't have anything to do, so we probably won't see each other until noon." As Marcy left with one of the guys she was dancing with, Anna said, "I thought she was telling you that you wouldn't be interrupted. If you understood what I was getting at." I understood perfectly well what she was getting at, and it caused a small war in my head. You cannot, I thought. You're still a married man. It sounded you're separated and going through a divorce, so you're as good as a bachelor. I don't know why I was so hesitant. My own daughter encouraged me to do this, and moreover, Iris, by breaking her marriage vows, could be considered to have freed me from mine. In the end, the phrase "no one slept with you" tipped the scales in Anna's favor. Was I ever glad it turned out this way? Over pancakes and bacon at breakfast, Anna casually made it clear to me that she was not suitable for marriage. I don't have the temperament to live with just one person. I tried, but it didn't work out. On the other hand, I can be a great friend with benefits. If last night was any indication, I'd say the benefits are worth it. Can I apply for a waiting list? Actually, you interviewed for this position last night, and you got the job. I took her home and went back to Marcy. When I walked in, she was there and smiled at me, looking up questioningly. She made an okay sign with her thumb and forefinger, and I smiled back and said, "Very." For the next 2 months, I saw Anna 2 or 3 times a week. And then, one Sunday morning, she told me that this night was our last. She received a promotion which forced her to move to Atlanta. This was a huge disappointment for me. I got used to our relationship and hoped that it would last a long time. A very long time. Marcy told me that even though I would miss Anna, I had a replacement waiting in the wings. Anna told all the girls how wonderful you are, and if I had money, I would bet everything on the fact that by the end of the week, you will have a new girlfriend. She was right. The following Friday, we had hardly sat down at a table in the grotto when women began to come up to me and invite me to dance. One of them, a hot brunette named Melissa, or her friend Mel, invited me 4 times. The last time, it was the last dance of the evening. It was the song Nights in White Satin, and while we were slowly moving around the hall, she looked me in the eyes and said, "Do I want to be with you tonight?" Marcy left an hour earlier and told me not to expect her until noon. So I told Mel, yes, I have to be home before 9 to take care of my mother. When I asked, she said she still lives at home with her parents, and her mother is disabled and needs a lot of care. Next Friday night, please, absolutely right for the next 2 months. Mel was my friend. I could only see her on Thursdays and Fridays because she worked in the afternoons, and Thursdays and Fridays were her days off. One Monday evening, toward the end of our second month, playtime with Mel suddenly stopped. I left work and headed to my car. When I approached, I saw a man leaning against it. He straightened up as I approached and said, "You came just in time. Do we know each other?" "No, and you will regret that you ever met me." "What does all of this mean?" "I'm going to kick your 5th place big time." I looked him up and down and said, "Perhaps this will not be so easy for you. Can you tell me why you want to try?" "Because he slept with my wife, that's why." "I'm not going to be with anyone's wife." "Are you denying that you're sleeping with Mel?" "Who the hell is Mel?" "She's not married." "What the hell?" "She's not married. She has been married to me for 10 years. If you're telling the truth and she's married, I, of course, didn't know about it. She doesn't wear rings, and no one at the grotto ever told me she was married. But I'll tell you this, you kick her out, and I will take her in. Why the hell would you do such a stupid thing? If she cheats on me, she will cheat on you too. Did you ask her why? She doesn't know what I found out. You need to find out why. All I know is that if I take her, I sure as hell won't give her a reason to cheat. But I will say this, now that I know she's married, I'll stay away from her until you both work things out. But I have a question for you. How can she leave home every Friday and Saturday and disappear all night without you knowing about it? I drive a truck, and I'm away from home from Thursday to Sunday." He glared at me as I prepared for his attack, but to my surprise, he turned and walked away. I spent the next week thinking about who would replace Mel. On Friday, I went to the grotto, and about half an hour after I got there, Mel came in, saw me, and came up to me. She sat down and said, "I understand you were dating Royce?" "If Royce is your husband, then yes, we met." "Will this stop us from having fun?" "It depends on what happens." "How?" "I told him I would stay away from you until he got rid of you." "Has he kicked you out yet?" "No, and he won't kick me out because he loves me." "Then we won't be able to be together." "Why not?" "Because you were married, and if I had known this in advance, I would never have started dating you. I would never knowingly do to another man what my wife and her lover did to me." "I don't think so. I'm just doing to you what Roy refuses to do to me. I love this man, but I need more. You and I have a great relationship, lover. Let's not stop." "Sorry, Mel, but if Roy doesn't tell me he kicked you out, we'll be in the past." She looked at me for a second or two, then got up and moved to another table. 5 minutes later, there was a guy sitting next to her. I danced with several other ladies who were there but made no attempt to speak to them. An hour before closing, the guy sitting with Mel went to the toilet, and Mel stood up and came over to me. "Last chance," she said. "Sorry, Mel, but you know my position on this matter." "Your loss," she said and returned to her table. When the guy returned, they left. That night changed a lot of things except my relationship with Mel. Around 4 in the morning, I was awakened by loud knocking on my bedroom wall. It was the wall between Marcy's bedroom and the one I slept in. It took me half an hour to fall back asleep, and when I woke up in the morning, my plan for the day was to find an apartment. Marcy was preparing breakfast when I walked into the kitchen. As I poured myself a cup of coffee, she smiled at me and asked if I slept well. I decided that she didn't need to know that she woke me up, so I just told her that I slept like a rock. It was Saturday, and I spent almost all this time looking for an apartment. I found one that I liked and completed the paperwork. When I returned to Marcy, she said, "Mom called. You need to call her." "For what?" "She has a contract on the house." "And what? I will send her the power of attorney by mail." "Call her, Daddy. Talking to her will kill you." I hadn't spoken to Iris since I moved to the coast, and I wasn't sure I wanted to hear the sound of her voice. Not having contact with her helped me forget about what she had done. I loved that stupid, damn it, I still loved her and thought about her all the time. I even thought about her when I made love to Anna and Mel. No, I really didn't want to hear the sound of her voice, but Marcy had a task, and she brought me the phone and said, "Call her." I should have said no and then gotten up and left the room, but I didn't. I dialed my old home number. It rang 4 times, and then, "Hello? Hello, Iris? Marcy said you called and wanted to talk to me." "How are you, Frank?" "I'm fine, Iris. What did you want to talk about?" "I miss you, Frank. I don't know where this came from. God knows I didn't want to say it, but I miss you too, Iris," came out of my lips before I had time to think about it. "Oh my God, Frank, are you serious? What did you say about the house?" There was a short silence, and then she said, "We have a buyer for the house." I waited for the call until they decided on financing. Closing is scheduled for the 12th at 14S. Can you come? I don't know. There are only 6 days left until that happens. It's not much, but I'll see what I can come up with and call you back. I hope you can be here. We'll see, Iris. I'll call you tomorrow. When I hung up, I wondered why I didn't just say that I had given my power of attorney to her father or brother. Marcy saw the look on my face and asked, "What's the matter, Dad? What are you thinking about?" I shrugged and said, "I'm trying to decide whether to go back or just send the power of attorney." "Why don't you want to come back?" "Just the sound of your mother's voice upsets me." "So how can I cope with meeting her?" "I don't know if I can do this." "When will you start being honest with yourself, Dad?" "What do you mean by this?" "I saw the look on your face when you were talking to your mom. Do you miss her?" "I have no idea what happened between you two other than you were in a lot of pain. But not being with her is taking its toll on you. I never meant to tell you this, but your mom calls a couple of times a week and asks how you're doing. She's unhappy, Dad. She misses you madly. It's been a few months now, Dad, and maybe you're well enough to meet her. You need to come back, Daddy. It won't kill you. Since we're talking about what I need to do, you should know that I'm looking for my own place." "Why?" "What we have works for the most part." "It is, but it's time for me to give both of us some space." I saw sudden understanding come across her face. She blushed and said, "I need to check on dinner," and hurriedly left the room. After a silent dinner, Marcy asked, "Are you going to the grotto tonight?" "No, I think I'll sit down in front of the TV for a while. The ladies will be disappointed. I know a couple of them who are just itching to take your place, Melissa." "Your words make no sense, little girl. On the one hand, you're telling me to go home and be with your mom, and on the other hand, you're trying to set me up with your friends at the grotto. That's not what I said. I don't even know if it's possible for you and your mom to make peace. I wanted to say that you need to come to an agreement somehow. I'm staying home tonight anyway. I need to pack my things. I found a place to live, and all I'm waiting for is for them to do a credit check." On Monday, I got a call at work saying I was approved, so I started moving into my new place that same evening. I rented a 2-bedroom apartment with the intention of turning the second bedroom into a home office. Marcy insisted on coming with me, and while I was bringing things in, she said things like, "I have the perfect curtains for this room, and ugh, that carpet is a terrible color. You should ask them to replace it." She helped me set up the kitchen and then went home, leaving me to spend my first night in the new place. The next day was time to sort things out, and then it was decision day. Should I return to close or fax my power of attorney? I struggled with this and eventually decided to return. I picked up the phone and called. "Hello, it's me." I decided to go back to closing instead of sending the power of attorney. "Where will the closing take place?" "In the conference room of the First Bank on Shepherd Street at 2 o'clock. I'll prepare a spare bedroom for you." "I don't think this is a good idea. I'll be staying at a hotel just down the street from the bank." "Don't be stupid, Frank. There's no need to spend money on a hotel room when you have a 4-bedroom home." "I'll think about it. See you at the bank. Bye." I've been thinking a lot since my last conversation with Melissa, and even more during the return flight. Iris did what she did for the same reason Mel walked away from Roy. I couldn't remember ever being with Iris the way it was with Anna and Melissa. Iris said the reason she did what she did was not because I was bad in bed, but because she wanted to do something naughty and wild for once in her life. Was it a lie because she didn't want to hurt my feelings? Was there a real reason why she turned to Harold? I doubted that I would ever really know the truth about this. When I entered, Iris was already in the conference room. She smiled when I entered the room, stood up, and walked towards me. I quickly walked behind the table that separated us, and my smile faded a little. I noticed that she looked great, and it was obvious that she had dressed especially for me. She was wearing my favorite dress and her prettiest heels, and her hair was just the way I liked it. Before Iris could say anything, other people entered the room, and we began to fill out paperwork. When it was all over, I had a check in my pocket for $873.62. There were also 36 cents there, but who counted them? As we left the room, Iris asked, "Will you stay?" "You don't have to leave before 15. "No, I have a few more things to do, and then I'll try to catch a late flight back to the coast." I saw disappointment appear on her face, and she asked, "Will you ever forgive me, Frank?" "I don't know, Iris. You hurt me very severely. Maybe it will go away with time, but I don't know. I have to go. Goodbye, Iris." She stood and watched me leave. It was hard for me to leave, and I admit it, I wanted to take her into my arms. The voice in my head said, "Calm down, Frank. She slept with a guy and then admitted it was a mistake. You're still married to her, but you slept with Anna and Mel. One justifies the other. You want her, and you know you want her." It was hard to ignore that voice, but I forced myself to do it. At 5, I parked at the end of the block. When Harbaugh left the building and got into his car, I waited. I thought about what my lawyer had told me about the lawsuit against Harbaugh. Harbaugh refused to settle and said that if we insisted and he lost in court, he would simply declare bankruptcy and deprive us of all payments. As Harbaugh pulled away from the curb, I lined up and followed him. He pulled into the bar's parking lot, and I pulled in right behind him. I found a parking spot between his car and the entrance to the hall, got out of the car, and waited. He headed towards his car, and I blocked his path, smiled, and said, "Hello, Ted. Long time no see." I hit him and then got back into my car and drove away. I drove from the bar to 1384 Meadowbrook Lane and rang the doorbell. When Janet opened the door, I simply handed her a copy of my conversation with Iris and said, "I don't want to ruin your day, Janet, but you need to hear what's on this tape." "I'm sorry, Janet. You don't deserve this," and then I turned and walked away. 2 hours later, I was on my way home. The next morning, I called my lawyer and asked him to withdraw the lawsuit against Harbaugh. After hearing what he told you, I decided to give his wife a copy of the tape and let her handle it. A wise decision, since we might not have one anyway. Recently, courts have been quite lenient towards this type of claim. The final hearing on your divorce will take place in a week, on Friday, and you do not have to attend. 60 days after this, you will be a free man. For some reason, this news did not make me happy. I deposited the check from the house sale into the bank and made a mental note to start looking at apartments in about 4 months. I had signed a contract for my apartment for a minimum of 6 months, so I was locked in there. But towards the end of my lease, I needed to look for more permanent housing. The week flew by, and on Friday evening, I went to the grotto. I danced with several ladies there, but I didn't feel like flirting with any of them. Knowing that Mel was married made me regret seeing her. I decided that was enough for today and went home around 10 o'clock. On Saturday night, I was at the grotto again. 20 minutes after I sat down, Marcy came in and sat down with me. Then her friends came over, and we had to move a couple of tables together. What always struck me about the grotto was that most of the women who came here were confident and went after what they wanted. I was asked to dance much more often than I asked. There were 3 women at the table besides Marcy, and they all invited me to dance. I danced a couple of times with each of them, and around 11 o'clock was when I danced with Ruby. Anna once told me that if I ever got a chance, I'd be a fool not to take it. How about it, Frank? Do I have a chance? I would be a fool if I refused. Is there any reason why we can't leave right now? Nothing that would occur to me. Yours or mine. In my house, I feel much more comfortable. At least at first, for the next 2 months, Ruby and I met 2 to 3 times a week. Our relationship was temporary, and Ruby and I both knew it. One night, Ruby dropped it on me. Today was our last night, lover. I became too attached to you. I was disappointed because I was quite comfortable with Ruby. While I was with Ruby, the relationship between Melissa and Roy heated up. Roy lashed out at Mel's current boyfriend, was jailed, and Mel not only refused to post bail but also filed divorce papers while he was in jail. 2 weeks after Ruby let me go, Mel called me. You said you wouldn't see me until Roy and I broke up. Can you see me on Friday? Are you sure? What about the other guys you dated? They don't meet my standards. Yes or no? Was I going to refuse such an offer? Do you want me to pick you up? Say at 7 and be prepared for the fact that we may not even leave my house. On Monday, my lawyer called me and said that the divorce was finalized. I sent the documents, and they should come to you on Thursday. Are you going to come back and celebrate? Not yet, but perhaps by the end of the month. After hanging up the phone, I realized that I had nothing to celebrate. All I felt was a sense of loss. The next 2 months were filled with work, looking for an apartment, and Roy's sentencing. Roy was convicted of malicious assault and served a 9-month sentence in the county correctional facility. While Mel was getting a divorce, she started talking about what we would do when she was free, and it was obvious that she was hoping that I would put a ring on her finger. I didn't say anything, but it shouldn't have happened. She openly cheated on Roy with more than one guy. I would never marry her, and sooner or later, I would have to tell her about it. It happened much faster than I expected, and I didn't have to tell her anything. It was more of a show than anything else. It was Saturday night, and Mel and I were at the grotto. We were on the dance floor when I happened to look towards the door. Mercy walked in, and she wasn't alone, Iris was with her. To say Iris looked great would be a huge understatement. I must have tensed up because Mel sensed it and asked if anything was wrong. I told her no, that I just felt a sudden chill. We were sitting at a couple of tables pushed together with other regulars, and naturally, Marcy headed there. By the time the band finished performing the number Mel and I had been dancing to and announced they were taking a break, Marcy and Iris were already sitting at the table. Over Mel's shoulder, I saw Marcy introducing Iris to the others at the table, and she must have introduced her as my mom because I noticed a few quick glances in my direction. Mel and I walked back to the table, and Iris saw me approaching. Her face broke into a wide smile that quickly disappeared when she realized the woman walking next to me was actually with me, not just walking along the hall nearby. Mel and I sat down, and Iris said, "Hello, Frank. How are you doing? Are you doing well, Iris? It's been better, but so long ago. Are you going to introduce me to your friend?" "Certainly, Mel, this is Iris." "And Iris, this is Melissa, although she prefers to be called Mel." "Come on, Frank, you can probably come up with something better." "Fine, Mel, this is Iris, my ex-wife. And this is Mel, my main girlfriend." Mel laughed and said, "Oh, well done. Maybe we can meet and exchange stories." I could tell by the look on Iris's face that it would be very cold in hell before that happened. There was the usual chatter around the table, and Iris studiously avoided looking in Mel's direction. When the band returned and began the first number of their next set, I grabbed Marcy by the hand and pulled her onto the dance floor. "What the hell is going on here, Mom?" "Dad, Mom called me and asked if she could live with me now that you have moved and have your own place." "I'm not going to refuse my mom." Don't you think maybe I should have been warned before bringing her here? Perhaps, but she wanted to surprise you. She succeeded. Damn it, Marcy, how could you do this to me? It wasn't difficult, Dad. I happen to love both of my parents, and it's easy for me to see that they still love each other. Don't bother denying it. I saw your face light up for a few seconds when you first saw her come in, and God knows I've heard enough of her over the past few months to know that being away from you is killing her. If there is anything I can do to get you two back together, I will do it. Bringing her here tonight is just the first step. You're interfering in our affairs, Marcy. I know, but like I said, I love you both, and I want to see you both together again. This little girl doesn't stand a chance. We'll see, she said. When the number ended, as we returned to the table, the next number began, and I saw a man ask Iris to dance. They hit the dance floor as Marcy and I sat down. Iris and her partner remained on the floor for 3 numbers, and about halfway through the 3rd number, I felt a sharp poke in the ribs. I turned around and saw Mel looking at me. You should be here with me, not on the dance floor with your ex. What the hell are you talking about? You haven't taken your eyes off her since she hit the dance floor, and judging by the look on your face, you want to go out and kill the guy she's dancing with. I realized that she was right. I really wanted to come out and tell him to get his hands off my wife. My wife? Where the hell did this come from? She was no longer my wife. Call me when you decide what you really want, Mel said, standing up. Right now, at least to me, it's obvious that your heart is out there on the dance floor. She left, leaving me sitting on the dance floor. I saw the hands of the man dancing with Iris cross the line, and I felt a sudden rush of rage that I didn't know I was capable of. I grabbed him by the shoulders, pulled him away from Iris, and said, "Get your dirty hands off my wife." He gathered his courage to rush at me, but looking at my face, he changed his mind, turned, and walked away. I looked at Iris and saw a puzzled expression on her face. Are you forgetting anything, Frank? I seem to remember the legal point that I am no longer your wife. You moved borders. Maybe I wanted this. You wanted it? I will, and I grabbed her. Stop, Frank. Stop it now. Damn it, Frank. Let me go. My handbag, my purse, is on the table. Damn it, Frank. Stop it now. I ignored her and dragged her outside. What are you doing, Frank? Damn it, Iris, I want it. If you want this, take me to your place and do it properly. Do it secretly, but not here and not like this. Get in the car, Iris. I need to take my purse and change shoes. Marcy will take care of it. Get in the damn car. Yes, Frank. When I woke up in the morning, Iris was awake, sitting in bed and watching me. Seeing that I was awake, she asked, "Why, Frank?" "Why what?" "What happened last night?" "You couldn't wait to get rid of me, but last night, you were jealous. It was written all over your face, Frank. I could read it, just like anyone else who paid attention to me." This look literally screamed, "This is my woman." Am I being honest? I'm your woman. I don't know what happened last night, Iris. It just happened, and I don't know why. Well, I'm glad it happened, Frank. It's just a pity that this didn't happen earlier. She got out of bed and said, "If you tell me where everything is, I'll cook us something for breakfast." There's nothing here. I haven't gone grocery shopping yet this week. We'll go to the village, but you better call Marcy first. She might be worried. I don't think so. I think last night was exactly what she was hoping for when she brought me to this place. I think you're the one to call her, not me. Who should I call? The young lady you were with last night. Why do I need to call her? I hope it will be to tell her that you won't see her again. I wish there were more nights like last night, Frank. Maybe another 20 or 30 years. I lay there looking at her and suddenly realized that I wanted this too. What do you think of our story today? In my opinion, the wife did the right thing to confess right away, but at the same time she did the wrong thing because she should have said it before the affair instead of after. What's your opinion? Write in the comments. Until new videos.